What's up, YouTube? On this episode of Coddiwomple Overland, we're going to be headed to the Peach State and running the Georgia Traverse.
We don't need a destination, let's go where the river's taking us.
The Georgia Traverse is approximately 390-mile on and off-road trail that runs from western Georgia to eastern Georgia. We had already done the western side of the Georgia Traverse, and it was mostly blacktop, so we decided to start in Dalton this time and head east. Just outside of Dalton, we set up our first camp of the night.
We gonna burn?
We really couldn't see much around us the night before, but what we woke up to this morning was an amazing North Georgia mountain campsite. Teddy and JoJo made the trip down with us in their gray Gladiator, and they'd be spending the whole trip with us. The first order of business for the morning was coffee and breakfast.
JoJo and her master pancaking.
Trying.
After a delicious breakfast, we went ahead, made the preparations to get ready and hit the trail. Our camp for the night had been just east of Dalton, and the plan was to continue our way east toward the South Carolina border. The morning started out a little bit foggy and dreary, but the sun was supposed to show itself later in the day. As we continued along the route, we decided to take the northern half of the Bullfrog Loop. This would ultimately take us into Tennessee for a little while. We've been on this particular trail a few different times, but every time we do, we have to stop and check out the beautiful Coddiwomple River. Another beautiful stop are the falls just north of the river. We had timed this trip almost perfect. As you could tell, the first tastes of spring were starting to pop out, the temperatures was warming, it was looking like it was going to be a really good several days. After a full day's adventure, we set up camp along Tumbling Creek. The weather was perfect, there was barely a cloud in the sky, and the temperature was in the mid-70s. After we got the camping area cleaned up, it was time to settle in, relax, and get ready for the night.
Shrimp creel.
Shrimp creel. We should have got the tails off shrimp.
What is this?
After a delicious dinner and relaxing a bit, Deb and JoJo decided to chase some frogs.
Oh.
But this would only be the beginning of our adventure for the night. We've been watching the weather pretty closely as we always do, but this time it was a little more intense than before. We knew that there was a very strong line of storms coming at us. We had been watching it about every hour, and about 2:30 in the morning, we decided it was time to pack up and find some shelter.
So here's our current situation. It's about 15 after 3 in the morning. We've been watching this line of storms come all the way across. Since early yesterday, the prediction was that it was going to fall apart before it got to us. It's decreased a little bit, but it's still producing some pretty severe thunderstorm warnings with winds 70 and 80 miles an hour. They're coming right to us, and right there are where the warnings are at. So we've opted to get out of the woods and find a little bit safer shelter. We'll let you know what we find. Yeah. So here's where we're at. We're sitting in a Federal Credit Union parking lot. We've made it this far. We're just outside of McCaysville, but we looked for a room, and obviously nobody's answering at 3:30 in the morning. So we're gonna kind of sit here and wait this thing out. We've got a little bit of cover if it starts to hail, but this is what we're currently looking at. We'll let you know what turns out.
After safely making it through the storm, we made our way back to Tumbling Creek and reset up camp. This is where we were going to meet Jeremy and Chris from October Wild, the YouTube channel. They've just recently moved to the eastern side of the United States, and we were anxious to show them around our beautiful area. Well, on the first day, we didn't see any blacktop at all. The second day, we did see some blacktop, but what we did had lots of old farms and beautiful livestock along it. It was getting to be early afternoon as we crossed the Toccoa River on the Shallowford Bridge. I would imagine that this area right here is pretty bustling during the summer with all kinds of activities. And no matter what part of the country we're in, it doesn't matter, we always find Sasquatch. And most of the time, things like Sasquatch is not the only thing we find. If you slow down and look at your surroundings, you never know what kind of treasure you're going to find. Here, we actually found an old homestead with the chimney still standing. Another pretty unique item that we came across was this apparent spring fountain. If anybody knows for sure what it is, please let us know in the comments below. But that's what we could come up with. By the end of another beautiful day, we found ourselves setting up camp close to Rock Creek.
snack tray before we went. We were really hungry today.
We got to camp early and decided to go all out for dinner. It included everything from a charcuterie board to burgers, complete with bacon, and even French fries. After an amazing dinner and a beautiful evening sitting around just enjoying everybody's company, it didn't take long before we got tired and Aspen told us it was time to go to bed.
Yeah. This is our offering.
This morning everybody pitched in with breakfast, and what we turned out was some amazing breakfast burritos. After breakfast, it didn't take long to get packed up and get back to moving again. Today was going to be a fairly short day for Teddy and Joanne on the trail, as they were going to have to be going back home about mid-afternoon. They own Cook Tire in London, Kentucky. We're really excited to have them as a sponsor for our tires, and we're even more excited to have them as friends. As the day went on, we found the trails getting a little bit steeper as we made it into the North Georgia mountains. Well, this wasn't difficult at all. It was fun to see some elevation change. But this time we had made it almost to Blairsville, and it was time to stop and get some fuel and snacks. After leaving Blairsville, we hopped on the Russell Brasstown Scenic Byway. Now this was blacktop, but it offered some incredible vistas from the overlook. It wasn't long before we had had enough blacktop, and it was time to hit the dirt again. We made our way to the Tray Mountain Road. Tray Mountain was a lot of fun. While it wasn't super technical at all, it was more technical than anything that we had done on the trip so far. By this point, it was getting a little bit later in the day. The shadows were starting to grow. We found this perfect place along Corbin Creek to set up camp for the night. This was also an awesome opportunity to let Aspen off of his lead and just let him run a little bit.
Good boy. That's a good boy. Good boy, yeah. That's a good boy.
We'd spend the rest of the evening just hanging out with Jeremy and Chris and getting to know them a little better. One of our favorite things to do along the trail is make new friends. After cleaning up camp for what will be our final night on the Georgia Traverse, we headed on out and continued our way east. Just after this, we hit Blacktop, and this was where Jeremy and Chris would have to leave us to make their way on back home as well. This would leave just Deb and I for the remainder of the day. As much as we love company on the trail, sometimes it's nice just to be me and her. And Charlie's Creek was the perfect place to do that. We're always on the lookout for new trails, and the loop on Coleman River was one that we had never been on. This didn't look like much of a river to me, but I guess all rivers have to start somewhere. Another area that's really neat to drive through is the Spring Valley Lodge area. Apparently there's quite a bit of springs that come out in this area, and they've created quite the retreat right around them. Along our travels, we always try to find local restaurants to eat at from time to time, and this one looked perfect.
This is going to be good.
One of the best places to find a local restaurant is to look where the local police are hanging out. As we seen the Mud Creek Falls off in the distance, we tried to get there, but it was blocked by private property, so we had to continue on up the road to where we could find an overlook from the top. When you stop at this overlook, it's just a short walk on up to see this beautiful old bridge and the top of the falls. After we left the waterfall, we made it past the Watkins Mill area and then headed toward Burroughs Ford. While we had already been across Tail Ridge a couple times before, we seen a little offshoot loop named Holcomb Creek and decided to take that as just a small detour. Well, this was not difficult at all. Holcomb Creek was definitely worth the detour, and the lightly traveled two-track road is definitely one you might want to check out. The Burroughs Ford Bridge not only signifies the end of the Georgia Traverse, it is actually the state line between Georgia and South Carolina. Once you get out to the blacktop, you can stop at this beautiful overlook, and what it gives you is a bird's eye view of the flatland all the way to the East Coast. The Georgia Traverse is not difficult at all. Virtually anyone with a four-wheel drive can do it. It's a perfect place to start your overlanding adventures, and it's also a great place to hang out with good friends. We hope you've enjoyed riding along with us on our adventure of the Georgia Traverse, and look forward to the next one. Until next time, see ya.